This is CNN Breaking News.
We have breaking news, and it's coming to us out of Anchorage, Alaska, where it is just about 9:30 a.m. local there. There has been an earthquake of a magnitude 7.0. This is a major earthquake. We're getting some of our first pictures of some of the damage that we've seen here. You can see just food strewn about in this eating establishment. We've also seen reports, and we've seen video from the local TV station. You see some here, windows blown out, the glass just blown out of these windows. This is major. I want to bring in Allison Chinchar. Allison, you've been monitoring this from the moment that we first got word that this had happened, and we're also looking at pictures here of a school. We've heard from some witnesses that this is something that it just felt like it went on forever, Allison.
Yeah, and that could also be in turn because we've had multiple aftershocks. We've already had 5 large aftershocks. That doesn't even take into account some of the smaller ones. The highest one was a 5.8, and that one is actually the one that impacted downtown. So you actually probably have some buildings that sustained more damage from that 5.8 aftershock than they did from the initial quake. Now, part of that is, again, when you have an earthquake the size of a 7.0, that is going to structurally compromise a lot of the buildings. Any aftershocks after that likely to do even more damage. Again, all of those red dots, those are the ones you see. Those are the aftershocks. Now, in terms of the overall scale, the main concern still going forward is this tsunami warning. It is a very localized threat. It only impacts the Cook Inlet and the Kenai Peninsula. Again, these main areas right around where that 7.0 was. If you live in those areas or know people that do, get to higher ground. Those waves of tsunamis can come in relatively quick, every 5 minutes. Sometimes they can be at intervals as much as 40 minutes, but you don't want to take that chance. You're seeing damage there on the screen from some of these earthquakes and aftershocks. Those aftershocks are likely to continue. So more damage is possible, especially you heard one of those reporters from the local affiliate saying, turn your gas off if you know how, turn your water off if you know how, because that will help protect your home in some of these subsequent aftershocks. Now, one other thing to mention, the USGS has put out that they expect this to be a yellow pager. This is in terms of economic impacts. They expect it to be a yellow, about a 35% chance that you're going to have some significant economic impacts, most of which in this case, Brianna, is likely going to be that damage to buildings, roadways, things like that. We also had word that there's issues for people getting to the international airport there as well.
Yeah, and we saw a picture of an off-ramp that looked very damaged. There was some concern from the local reporters actually for the safety of a motorist, so we're going to continue to monitor that. Allison, stay with us because I want to bring in Nick Watt. He is monitoring this from the West Coast. You are there in Los Angeles monitoring this. What can you tell us?
Well, listen, as Alison said, there could be more damage created by the aftershocks, but also we still don't know the extent of the damage from the original quake, which was just before 8:30 in the morning, Alaska time, and those subsequent aftershocks going up to 5.8. Now, the actual first major earthquake was about 5 miles northwest of Anchorage at a depth of about 25 miles. Now, we've seen on social media a number of pictures of, pendant lights swinging, windows smashed, but people are still assessing. Now, we just heard from the Department of Transportation up there in Alaska. They say that they have had reports of damage in Anchorage and surrounding areas. They have crews out right now trying to assess that damage. We also heard from the school district. They are advising people to come and pick their kids up, and they are assessing the damage to their buildings. Now, we've also heard from one person who was a witness of somebody up there, and it's difficult getting information out because, as you mentioned, the TV stations were knocked off the air, a lot of phone lines damaged, but we did hear from somebody called Philip Peterson who says, I could tell this was bigger than anything I'd been in before, and it wasn't going to stop. Remember, of course, back in 1964, there was a devastating bigger quake up there in Alaska that killed, estimates say, over 100 people. Now, this man, Philip Peterson, was in a multi-story downtown building in Anchorage. He said it was a big jolt. It sounded like a big crack. You could hear this big crack, then it just jolted back and forth. Now, they're also assessing the damage out there at the airport. There is a stop zone on any flights heading to Alaska. So early suggestions, there is definitely damage. The extent of that damage, we just do not know yet. Brianna, back to you.
All right, Nick Watt, thank you so much. And we are looking at some new video that is coming into us from Anchorage, Alaska. We're getting video taken from inside of buildings there in the Anchorage area. And we're going to continue to monitor this as they have suffered a 7.0 earthquake with a lot of concerns about damage. We're getting new information in. We have a lot of folks assessing what's going on there. We're going to be talking to some people there on the ground in just a moment. We'll be right back.
Off the steps, get off the steps. Yeah, get into the door frames. Into the door frames. Because there's going to probably be another one. We're still shaking. Get in the door frames.
We're following breaking news out of Alaska. There has been a major earthquake there, 7.0, reports of a lot of damage, and this is the early stages. Folks are still trying to assess what is going on there, but we're talking about windows blown out. There are highways that are closed. There's damage to roads. We have seen what looked like an on-ramp to a highway that had just crumbled. So we're talking about serious damage here, and I do just want to tell folks there who might be listening to CNN on satellite radio, if you are in the Cook Inlet area, the Kenai Peninsula, there is a tsunami warning for those areas, so you're going to want to head to higher ground and check in with your neighbors about that as well. I want to bring in Blair Braverman. She is coming to us from Wasilla, Alaska. She was actually heading to Anchorage, Alaska. Blair, I know you were there from Wisconsin to train for the Iditarod, for the iconic dog race, and you were trying to head to Anchorage. You're in Wasilla. Tell us about what you are seeing. Just describe the scene around you.
Well, we just left the only gas station that's open, where the woman who runs it is contemplating turning on the emergency off switch, but everyone's just fueling up on gas to drive to high ground. My husband and I are driving east. No, we're driving west. We're driving north. We've turned around a couple times to get to high ground because we are pretty close to the coast, and we're getting conflicting reports, but the radio says to still evacuate, so we're just going to keep driving until we hear otherwise from a very official source.
Okay, so we will tell you that the official warnings coming to us are that the Cook Inlet has a tsunami warning and the Kenai Peninsula has a tsunami warning. It's not the entire coast of Alaska, we should point out. This is a limited tsunami warning, but there is one that is in effect. And Blair, what's the damage like? We are. What is the damage like? And you're saying that's where you are.
Yeah, there are sinkholes in the road. There are reports of gas leaks. The power is out in this entire town.
And what's the damage like?
People are concerned about gas leaks, I should say. We are on the road, and there's just a lot of stop-and-go traffic of people trying to get to high ground. But we're getting reports about on-ramps crumbled, sinkholes in the road, rock slides covering the road. There's a lot of mountainous areas around here, and people are trying to figure out how to get out safely.
So can you tell us what it was like when you went through this earthquake? And also, can you just be clear to us, Blair, are you there waiting for gas and you're on your cell phone? I want to make sure that you're in a safe place.
I am. My husband's driving, and we just filled up on gas. We have a full tank, and we're leaving the gas station. We were able to get through the line. So I am safe right now. We're on the road driving.
Okay, and so tell us about going through this earthquake.
We were in a hotel room because I'm on my way to Anchorage for the Iditarod rookie meeting. And I grew up in California. I've felt earthquakes before, but this was next level. Just the bed started shaking. Everything was shaking so dramatically. My husband sort of crawled across the room and threw himself on top of me, and we crawled to the bathroom together and waited it out in the doorway and waited out the aftershocks. After that, people were running down the halls, banging on the doors to evacuate. All the power was out, and it was still dark here. The sun hadn't risen. So you really couldn't get light from outside the window either.
All of this happening in the dark there in Anchorage. Blair, as you were on the phone there, as you were driving, trying to get to a safer place, can you stand by for us? We want to listen to the local affiliate, out of Anchorage describing the damage in the area.
That are just all over there. So right here are the glass edit bays. Let me go ahead and zoom on in. You can see the glass doors have fallen and some of them have broken. So it was hit pretty big. So if you are just tuning in or if you've been with us, 7.0 magnitude earthquake. And the reason this one is so big was it was just 5 miles north of Anchorage. So really close to the city center, 7.0 magnitude, which is a big one. You can still hear alarms going off, and just 25 miles deep. So this thing came on, and within seconds, a matter of just a few seconds, the newsroom looked like that. Things were falling, there was a dust in the air. Every time you were breathing it kind of hurt, and it was what I assume is just happening everywhere. It's all the sheetrock, it's all the walls shaking, and all of that just solid stuff becoming dust from that hard shaking. So it was quite incredible. I mean, we showed you around the building, showed you what it looks like inside. We're doing our best to give you any information you can. I keep trying to tweet and Facebook from my phone to get that information out on social media, but it's not going. It's not making it through. There's too much bandwidth being used. So what we're doing here is just staying on, letting you know, saying 7.0, 5 miles north.
And also to let you know what's going on is that even though right now, obviously, we're off the air, everybody in town is off the air, but my brother is a producer down in Miami, and he sent me a picture. CNN is been running some of this stuff.
Okay.
So it's like
All right, so that just shows you how chaotic things are there in Anchorage. The local affiliate KTVA broadcasting with just the technology that they have in their pockets, not even aware that it's going out there on CNN, but we've been dipping into local coverage. We've been hearing the sirens, we've been hearing the alarms, we've been talking to people who are there in Anchorage describing the damage that you can see here from the 7.0 earthquake near Anchorage. We're going to keep covering this. I want to get in a quick break, and we'll be right back. Breaking news out of Anchorage, Alaska, and some new video coming to us there of the earthquake damage. You can see why the Anchorage Police Department is saying that there is major infrastructure damage here. This is one of the roads in the area. This happened this morning. Now you can see it's dark there, but this was happening. It was still dark there at around 8:30 a.m. when this happened. And you can see a road there just buckling with a car in the middle of it. This is the concern of emergency responders there, the situations that people may be in. I want to get to Pete Peterson. He's an Anchorage resident. Pete, I know you were actually you were in bed when this happened, and this woke you up. Tell me about what happened.
Well, you know, we do get earthquakes regularly here in Anchorage. So it's not uncommon to feel a little shaker, you know, sometimes in the evenings or in the mornings or whatever. But this one was a big jolt. It started immediately with a big jolt, and I could tell, you know, instantly that this was going to be a pretty big shaker.
And so what damage are you seeing? Either is there any damage to your building? Is there any damage that you can see?
I haven't. I went outside and looked around. I didn't see any physical damage to the building. So, you know, structurally, as far as I could tell, it looks fine. Pretty much everything that was sitting on top of anything else has been shook down to the floor. And so I did have a little broken glass with a couple of prints that had fallen from the wall.
And tell me, have you been able to get in touch with family or friends? What's the connectivity like there as far as phones go?
Well, my cell phone does work. My landline does not. I don't have power right now. There are areas of Anchorage I've heard that do have power, but here in the east side of town right now we don't have power. I was able to get a phone call through my sister who lives in Eagle River about 15 or so miles north of here, and so I was able to talk to her. She is without power as well, but she and her husband are doing fine. And then I got a text message off to my brother to let him know. He lives in Iowa, And he just texted me back a few minutes ago saying that he was glad everything wasn't worse.
Yeah, and hopefully he's hearing you here on CNN and he can hear that you are doing quite fine. There is concern, of course, about a lot of other people in the Anchorage area. We're seeing some pictures of a buckled highway, and I know this is one of the concerns. Now, Pete, I don't know how old you are, so you let me know if you went through the 1964 quake or even just what the concern is. You said that you're used to earthquakes. I know that's the case being from the West Coast. There are little earthquakes that you go through, and then there are the occasional big ones like this that are so awful. What will be the concerns, do you think, historically there in Anchorage when you think about the damage that this city has experienced before?
Well, the earthquake in '64, and I wasn't living here back then. I moved here in 1981. But the quake shook so long and so violently in '64 that the soil underneath parts of Anchorage turned to liquid. And so I don't believe we had anywhere near the type of shaking this time that would cause that type of damage.
Well, and thank goodness. We're seeing some video coming in from schools. We're seeing some of the damage that you described there. We just were speaking with Pete Peterson, a resident of Anchorage, who was saying that, in his house, things have gone, he's fared pretty well, but anything that was on shelves, pictures have fallen to the ground. 7.0 earthquake happening near Anchorage, Alaska. Major infrastructure damage, according to the Anchorage Police Department. We will continue to follow this here on CNN. We'll be back in just a moment.